think I know what we're doing here. We're doing mics up, we're doing desktop audio up, we're doing the desks clean so I can say, tonight on Tonight We Race, we sort of race, and then I do this, and then I think I do this, and you hit the A button, I hit the A button.
It says ready.
And it's on. We're
All right.
going. This is happening. I challenge you to 5 laps on Copperwood, which is not a real racetrack.
I hope you know that the most likely outcome is I'm going to drive straight into everybody as I try and figure out anything.
That's okay.
Whatsoever.
Collisions are turned on.
And what about damage?
A little quiet.
And damage is turned on.
To the rest of us, I think.
It's going to end perfectly well.
And you're on the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No,
There
no, wait, are you on the top?
No,
Yeah.
I think I'm on the
Just
bottom.
very quiet. Yeah.
Okay, we're just gonna casually
Just a little
do
mess
some
in turn
things.
one.
Yeah,
Just a little.
no,
Would
yeah.
have been cooler if he
Oh god, that's not how. Okay.
Oh, it's not the direction I wanted to go.
chat full track history for this fake circuit.
Oh no, not like this.
Christ.
Oh Jesus, straight into the wall.
Is this how GT4 went?
Yes, it was delightful. I loved every minute of it. You know, this would also be a great opportunity. Is this? Oh no, that's the pits. That's the pits. Tragedy has struck. I found the pits.
You know, I think maybe we have found the ideal form factor for season 2.
Yeah. All right, just got to make up some time here. Shortcut.
Is it Mario Kart?
Yeah,
Those
there's-
real people or fake people?
Those are fake people with
human
real
people
names.
in the studio.
It's a little known fact that we tried to get Trials Rising
Well, the stream is
operational
us
as a
who's
challenge
doing the cold
that
open
would've been so
racing.
good.
in the middle of the
Jack
season,
hanging.
and Ubisoft apparently for their DRM was using an undisclosed vulnerability in Windows to operate, and Microsoft patched the hole, and a whole bunch of Ubisoft
Conan
games just fucking
almost
stopped
driving
working.
straight into the pits again.
Yeah, did you like that? Did you like that almost going straight into the pits? A speed penalty for track limits. Man, I haven't been on the track like 80% of
Literally,
this drive. How are they only now figuring out my
It's just like you caught up. What,
Yeah.
great. Race controls are like.
Also, I feel like the amount of smoke coming out of my vehicle is bad. Maybe less than ideal.
You know, if you don't
Blew your
treat it like
radiator.
an automobile, treat it more like a point-and-shoot rocket, it's pretty
Is this
effective.
that arcade game where it just had and then you could spin it? It's
Yeah,
Oh, are
I
you
think it's
the Monster
I think
Truck
it's
Stadium
the
one?
modern successor, effectively.
it's something that
I really just want to try this. We're just gonna go this way. I mean, look. Oh no, tragedy. I have once again gotten myself black
How
flag.
it
We're just
all
gonna keep
started,
going.
huh?
We're gonna see what happens.
I
But, yeah.
thought I was like close to the front. Turns out I'm nowhere near it. Also, there's a lot of turbo smoke coming out of the back of my car. I can't do
You know, we're just gonna rejoin the track.
The Conan Joker line.
it.
Look, if,
Protest! Protest!
if they wanted more of that, then I'm sure there would be a number of other reasons that I can't just do exactly what I'm doing right now.
I like how you didn't actually gain any positions because the game is smart enough to know that you
Nope. That's,
Andy
at
takes
least
the
you're gonna
code.
mess with all the
that is
bots.
absolutely correct. We'll just do this one more time, and then I believe that our exit has to be manual because there's no way I'm doing it.
We will quit to
We'll
death.
quit to death.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the few circumstances I think where I'm going to outrace Conan in a straight race. So we do the let's do the thing. Hello and welcome to Tonight We Race, the retrospective episode. We're going to turn off the desktop audio here. I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in for season 1 and put in any content ever season 1. We thought that rather than everybody sitting around in a room and talking through like what we thought of the season and what we liked and what we didn't like here, we would actually just do the retrospective like live on camera because I mean why not? We've done all our development on camera and we've done all the racing on camera, so let's do the retro on camera. And so. Everybody should be in pod chat at this point. So I'm just going to go ahead and get us into the content. But before we do, that was the Circuit Superstars Panther GT on Circuit Superstars Copperwood. Sorry, you got to adhere to the forms here. All right, let's do the retro.
The lawyers said.
The lawyer said. So I want to lead off by talking real quick about a couple of pieces of content from season 1 that I personally found the most compelling. And it's no surprise that all of this content is backweighted into the season because our ability to execute and our production values just increased drastically from the pilot. And so as a result, I wasn't sweating bullets for most of the time. And in chronological order, from season 1 episode, I guess this is Ep 5, discovering that Mickey is actually an oval ninja. So this is Mickey out in front of the oval pack in the race with like 2, 3, 4, 5 in this hungry pack behind him. Like he's in this like concentrated stare over a 10 Newton meter wheel. Does not lose concentration over the entire race. Wins his first full 5-pointer. I thought that was a super awesome.
I will say that I had the joy of going with Mickey to his first track day.
Oh,
and
no
it
shit.
It was very much exactly like this. Just like once he figured it out, just straight up sent it. And it was
Yeah, because he was a more modest competitor earlier in the season, and then oval happened and he hit his zone.
Yeah,
he
great.
hit his stride. My second favorite moment, just scrolling back through here, was from episode B, which is the stupid way that we notated the Saturday episodes. And this is Shote and Duffy and myself bombing down the Mount Washington descent in a 600 horsepower Ford Fiesta. Absolutely terrifying. Like I felt every shake, every shudder, and every time you go over the edge and you're like the pit of your stomach drops out, and then the game's like, oh no, we're not gonna do the fall, we're gonna respawn you up here. It's like you've had an out of body experience and then you're snapped back to reality. Like super existential. Love the hell out of it. And then finally, I don't think any retrospective would be complete without the final redemption of Space Punies, getting the G-Wagon in the final Wednesday of the series. This is my favorite segment. My only regret here is that he was not. My only regret here is that he was not on camera for the jumping and the throwing of the horns. So, and that's it. So I want to stop talking here and let's open this up. I would love. Let's talk about the format. What did people think about like the format, like the cold open? And anyone out there online world, like just go ahead and put it in chat too. Like, how did we feel about cold open segment, feature race segment, feature race segment?
Good.
it was great.
I loved it. Slightly more practice, I guess, but also like maybe a way where we figure out practice that can also be like co-resident with commentary. Like maybe somebody gets picked to talk through the track. Like here's me trying to figure out a hot lap of the track, maybe as a way to just buy in practice time. Because I think that's the other thing that maybe we would have benefited from. We spent a lot of time figuring out the track in the race.
And I know that there was a strong desire to do more enduro type content, which is definitely going to be a factor in the holiday special that we're currently cooking, but also potentially next season as well. What about the remotes? Anyone have?
I'll vouch that I was surprised at how much I really enjoyed the cold open every night. Like when you're doing a proper league race format, like having kind of a for fun race to literally break the ice and get out the jitters and do some racing with your friends, and like all of it's incredibly fun. But there's something special about the cold open, knowing just like this is literally just about how good the racing is the entire time. So you'd see situations where it's like somebody would spin and somebody else would just hit the brakes and wait until they were back behind them so that you could keep having like a fantastic race with that person. And that was really, really, really cool. So big fan of the cold open format. Good vibe.
All right, so that was commentary on the format. I want to talk a little bit about the cars. I want to talk about what people thought was fun to drive and maybe not fun to drive. And I'll start. Like, for my money, Formula V is the ultimate format. It is small, fast. It makes you learn. It punishes you. It rewards you. It makes you use the big chunky gear shift. You can outrun one on a moped if you really want to, so you can't get into too much trouble. And obviously there are tracks where the V isn't good just because the complete lack of power makes it tough to do anything useful. I adore the V. That can't be the only opinion on cars we have, though.
Yeah, I think towards the end of the GT4 season, you could really tell we all kind of clicked. Like, that was enough seat time to, like, 4 races was enough seat time to really tighten up the racing and to let us all really figure out the cars really well. And so I think as the season got on, the racing significantly improved. But also, we were talking about this the other night when you logged on a little bit, but driving all the slower cars in the cold open was kind of eye-opening every single time, because I felt like there wasn't a car where I didn't learn some interesting thing about car control that I couldn't immediately apply to that night racing, which for me, as much as I super love GT3 and GT4 as a race class, those cold opens combined with getting really familiar with the GT4 cars kind of makes me feel like maybe what we should do is go to a slower overall car class where perhaps the racing is a little physically tighter because there's just less horsepower.
I have a secret, which is Goals alluded to here, which is that I snuck into the lab here last night, and I actually put in 2 hours on track myself, which I'm usually loath to do because technically my LLC owns all this and I don't, and so using it for personal use is complicated. Point being, I felt I could make the excuse I was doing Season 2 dev, which I am. I raced Rallycross last night for the first time. In the Volkswagen, in the Beetle Rallycross, and like that shift of everything I had learned previously is no longer valuable. I need to very, very rapidly integrate a whole new set of behaviors and patterns in order to be good or even passable at a thing. Like that is like, that's the stuff my brain craves, and like everyone's brain works differently, right? But like that's the stuff that my brain craves in a situation like this.
Sim racing environment too, because like watching you figure out your way around that car last night was really satisfying to watch, and is something you can really only get here in like the sim pods, right? You can't go hop into a $30,000 race car on any given day, figure it out for 15 minutes, do a race, and then disappear, right? That's only going to happen in the sim, where you can dip your toes, like you say, you just, I did some rallycross last night. It was really cool watching you go from, I'm way off the corner every single time with understeer, to like, now I'm initiating the slide and carrying the power the right way and modulating the throttle and like really managing the slide, and to do that within like a 10-lap window of driving the car. Which is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna sort of double up on both the format and the cars on this. As somebody who doesn't drive a lot of cars at sort of race quality or race speeds, definitely I noticed that having these shorter segments was great, but if I had to spend maybe half of it learning how the car works, it got to be really tricky. Some cars are obviously just easier to drive, others are harder to drive. And then, I think it's fine. I think it's a good experience. It's an interesting experience. But, I want to sort of think about the racing part and spend less time fighting the car. I feel like the GT League had the advantage of driving the same car for their series, which was nice. I actually like trying different cars, which is great, except that, again, there was this sort of learning curve where, we've got half an hour for a race. Learn fast.
I think it's also complicated where iRacing is the software in question, and we can talk about this in the software section, but like iRacing has a cost, and that cost is, like, some people could argue that $15 a month is marginal. For some people, $15 a month makes a real fucking difference, and you just don't get, when it's not free, you can't just like have worthless practice sessions constantly. And so I think that's a big factor on people getting the repeatability maybe that necessarily that they might want in order to be competitive. But I think, like, at least from what I'm hearing thus far, the balance of I'm going to do the familiar, but I'm going to do the new in in some order every night. I think that's what I'm taking away from this.
I would also add that I think one of the really fun things that we got into later is, I think when we first started playing around with this and like pilot and set up, and like the couple of things that we did before we actually got into it, wasn't a huge fan of open wheel because the consequences of open wheel crashes were so high. Even with damage off, you're just like, it's not like you have a small bump, a small misjudgment coming into a corner. I think that in the next season, it would be really neat to see if we are at a point yet as like whatever driving group ends up being there to, is that better? There we go. Whatever driving group ends up being there, if we could do that kind of close racing with open wheel cars, because I think that would be like incredibly thrilling from a driving perspective, and hopefully would also make really good content.
So that's a lot of scuba short and slow cars, but I'm okay with a lot of scuba short and slow cars if everyone else is.
I mean, I feel like this is the get good and then get into F3.
Yeah, I know that's
and
totally
like
fair.
I think that for the Wednesday crew, we are at the point where that would be fun, maybe more fun than frustrating, because you wouldn't just be like, oh my god, I spun the car. You'd actually have a chance of like maintaining it, and that's I think the great thing about the GT4 class is it's forgiving enough that like by the end of it we had sort of all tightened up our skill set to the point where we were really competitive together, and that's what makes for the best event to me. The car is kind of a delivery, like you can change the car based off of what the drivers are comfortable with, and I think that's probably the thing that I would say we should shoot for next time. It's not going to be easy, but at least maybe trying to shoot for, hey, here is a more predictable car. The Miatas were so much fun to just like bang doors with Ted.
Ted, Goals didn't think the Miatas were fun in the beginning. What was the story with that?
Yeah. I was struggling with the Miatas for the first probably half of that cold open, and then they just clicked. And as soon as they clicked, I was like, oh no, these are the best thing ever, because you have to drive them on the edge. And that's a prime example of, like I was saying earlier, like that's the car that taught you to drive to a performance metric, right? You have to gauge the Miata into slip angle, which is how you drive any car as fast as possible around a given corners. You find that slip angle and you do it. And the Miata had it was the reason I was struggling so much at the beginning was because it was so willing to initiate that slip angle, and I wasn't used to that into a car. But once you figured out how to manage that, it was so rewarding to drive fast in that environment.
It's like the car does exactly what you want, but you didn't realize you were asking it the wrong things.
Exactly. Or I didn't realize it was trying to set me up, right? So it'd be like, here, do the thing, and I'd be like, oh no, and spin, and then be like, why are you doing this to me? I'm trying to help you.
So let's segue into tracks then, because obviously cars and tracks are two extremely tightly coupled questions. What did people like about the tracks? What did people not like about the tracks? And I think my first opinion here is going to be very obvious based on the season dev, which is I love elevation changes. Cannot get enough of them.
I'd concur with that.
We noticed.
But yeah, I would second the elevation. The one thing that I liked about the tracks this season for the Wednesday crew release was that they were a lot of tracks that I've never raced before, and so it was really fun to kind of go in and like learn these. And some of them are extremely tight, like just basically hairpins and straights, and it was just like it kind of following on to from the car conversation. Like it was one of those things where you really have to learn lines and what is going to set you up for the next turn and all that. So yeah, I would say more of that.
And the tracks seemed to progress through the evening like the cars did, which was it felt thoughtful and well done. Things would escalate to from cold open to here's the ultimate race. You're doing Nürburgring in the GT4. You send it.
Or get sent.
Yeah. Also, it was nice. I have not raced a lot of tracks, but it was nice to have some staples that everyone knows, like I was surprised that I remembered Laguna Seca from however many hours I played in GT3 on the PS2. Like, and that was forever ago. I was like, oh, I remember this.
For our younger audiences, the PlayStation 2 was a gaming console that was launched by Sony Online Entertainment in the early 2000s.
Yes.
Right around 2 decades ago.
I will say I felt like specifically for the GT4 League, I felt like we found the pattern as the series went on. Like I think there's when you have like I think it's really important to pick the right track for your grid size, right? Like you're just gonna get way more interesting racing if you've got 6 guys on track, 6 drivers on track in car, but your track is 2.3 miles long or 2.4 miles long per lap, right? That's just so much more physical real estate for those cars to be all over the place, and it's not going to lead to as nice of a race. So I felt like as the season went on, and we realized kind of what the grid size was going to be once we made a couple of changes to like how the AI were going to go, getting rid of the AI, you know, figuring out the issues with like pulling starts or whatever. I felt like you found a good rhythm there with the racetracks.
All right, so no think, just answer. Conan, favorite track?
I'm not going to be able to name it, but I really enjoyed the
Lebanon or whatever.
Yeah, Lebanon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Lebanon.
yeah.
French ORP as we
Show,
call
show,
it.
no think, just
and
answer.
blame
Favorite
the
track?
French ORP.
Nürburgring.
Ooh, spicy. Duffy, no think, just answer. Favorite track?
I'm gonna go with whatever that one was that we drove the stadium trucks on because I had a blast that
The
day.
Chili Bowl.
No, not the Chili Bowl.
The other one?
The other one with like the elevation changes and the jump heading into the
Oh, Wild West Motorsports Park. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a blast. I really liked any of the dirt
Trap,
racing stuff.
trap,
we were
no
doing.
think, just answer. Favorite track?
Lime Rock with chicane.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear.
You can't play to the ref like that.
Goals, what do you think?
It's Circuit de Lebanon. That French ORP is so good.
And Doctor, did we get you?
No, but mine's Lebanon.
Space Punies?
As the track, definitely the French ORP Lebanon, but from the track that we raced, Laguna Seca was by far the best.
For me, it is Mount Washington Descent, which is
Oh, God.
transcendent. But if it's a real race, then Spa. I don't think there is anything more glorious than a full Formula car on Spa. It's amazing.
Did we get Drain?
Did we get Drain? Drain, do you have an opinion on this specifically?
Let me tell you all about him. Yeah, I'd say favorite was Laguna Seca because the difference between the PS2 version and this simulator version, the corkscrew, it feels like it's 300 feet tall in this, as opposed to before.
All right,
I was
let me
so
see where we're
surprised.
going here. Nope, good. The challenges, of which, to be perfectly fair, there were only one this season, which is the Bring a Trailer Challenge. Obviously, I'm into it since I didn't develop any other content for Season 1. What other opinions do we have?
I feel like we should have a Bring a Trailer Championship. Like there should be it should be a separate event.
Like a full-on esports, like GeoGuessr style, like.
Just like I think that it's obviously not a big deal, and this is all like fun and games. But I think there is a component of if Ted had not been able to win the championship because he didn't have the Bring a Trailer option, that would have felt a little sad. Like it would have been like a little bit like, well, you know,
What state does Ted live in?
I mean, he's just an hour and a half north.
I mean, Ted wants challenge points. Ted knows where he can go.
Ted can show up, drive back and forth between because there's not enough pods for him. Yeah, no, but like that's the one thing that I would say is I think like having like I would love to make like I don't know a Tonight We Race Season 1 little trophy that would be like the Bring a Trailer Challenge trophy to go with the like, hey, here's the actual like, you know, here's your championship win trophy. I would commit to that because I think like it adds another just different type of racing, right?
But
Like,
to be clear, the only prize for Season 1 is everybody gets iRacing bucks.
that's true.
Next season, there will be trophy dev.
Oh hell yeah!
Other opinions on challenges. I know that some people were on the really good side of the RNG. Like, let's be honest, I put together some real bangers and I put together some real stinkers. I personally found the stinkers entertaining, but your mileage may vary.
I mean, I always thought it was super entertaining. I think being in person was a little difficult because like we didn't have an audience ability to be there. Like the delay means I watched all of the Bring a Trailer stuff after the fact, which is fine. But like, I think maybe the little bit more of like a social element to it might also be fun.
Also, is that a format change? Is that like, is that there, like, the green room is not the right way to experience the stream? There needs to be like seating intrinsic to the, as an example, if we move the broadcast studio behind a green screen into what is currently Boxland,
Yeah.
and we put a fucking couch out here,
Yeah.
would that work?
Yeah, I think that would be great.
All right.
I think just
as a hypothetical.
Yeah, just a way that everybody can sort of like laugh and joke, because I did feel a little sad to miss out on like the jokes that I knew my friends were making, and I think that's also part of the fun of it, is that it becomes more of a less of a like get to know your driver and more of like a this is your Wednesday night crew and they're having fun together, and I think that's that's part of the appeal for me. I don't know if it makes good content. I'm not a content guy.
Yeah, because even on Saturday when we had a smaller crew, when it'd just be like two of us in the green room, we were still going back and forth about like whatever the cars were and like what the decision-making process was. So it'd be kind of cool to capture some of that.
Phone a
We were
friend.
looking at Twitch chat and agreeing with people or disagreeing and why.
I went back into all of those decks later on. My wife, whom is wonderful, and also Twindigo in the chat, pointed out that I have some very interesting tells and habits when I do this show, and my least useful of them is on nights when I do have a co-host, I tend to mouth their part of the script while I'm broadcasting, which is terribly embarrassing for someone that has like drama experience, but that's neither here nor there. I went back and I audited whether I was subconsciously putting patterns into the things, like, hold on, does the left car always win or does the right car always win? Like, hold on, do I describe them differently based on how they are? Like, do I do the note taking the same? It's actually difficult to have a rigid bring a trailer challenge that isn't biased somehow subconsciously. But neither here nor there. To be clear, we've had a lot of suggestions for additional challenge content in the Discord, and so we will be implementing some of those next season. Let's do a thing. Logistics. I'm going to be honest. I don't really know what I was expecting when I put this in the deck as far as like what do I want to talk about here, other than I think 3 nights a week is too much.
Let's win.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And there are 2 reasons we wound up doing 3 nights a week. The first is because on the original 2 nights that we chose, we realized we weren't going to have full pod mass, and we said, "Oh shit, can we put a Tuesday night together?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, let's put a Tuesday night together." Just how we got 3 nights a week. But the second reason was at the beginning of this, I was super I kind of lost religion there for a moment, because the whole point of this original exercise was like, let's do research and development for retail. Once you start a Twitch stream, you start getting really, really like, oh, but the numbers matter. Like we gotta do things. And so I started like looking back at affiliate status, because my personal account is affiliate status, but this obviously doesn't. I'm like, well, what do we need to get affiliate status? You need to broadcast a certain number of hours, and we need to have a certain number of followers, and like do all this shit. And like halfway through, I was like, why are we doing this? There's no reason to do this. Like, it doesn't matter if we broadcast 15 minutes a month. If that's what we need to do, what we need to do, then we just do that. And so the other reason was just to make sure we had the volume. I don't think we need the volume. I think if this is 2 hours a week, one night, it's still great. So that's my only comment on logistics. I'd love other comments though.
I mean, in my world, it was basically entirely down to scheduling. Like if I could make 3 nights a week, if that was reasonable, I totally would. But I think one night or every other week or or something along that line, like doing alternating sets. Because the other thing that I will say on the logistics side is initially too, we messed around quite a bit because we weren't sure if we were going to have full pods, but also then we weren't sure how we were handling remotes.
Yep.
And I think that adding remotes also kind of changed just the assumption stack a little.
It does, but I think we should be fully remote capable next season. Like, I think that we should, like, it shouldn't be first class citizens are in the lab, second class citizens are online. We should find a way to totally equalize. Like, you can participate from wherever you want to participate, and it's going to be a close to similar experience.
And I have at least, like, I think 2 to 4 more people who would love to actually really commit to something seriously. Like, I think we had very few drops. We had very few situations where people weren't able to make it. And I think, like, the folks that I'm thinking of would all bring that same commitment once they just had the planning and scheduling sorted out. So, like, I think that would be amazing just for the experience overall.
And then the only advantage you have from being here, other than the wonderful atmosphere and nice lighting, is the fact that there's a giant pile of money in each of those pods. And that does make a difference.
It does make a difference, yeah.
Yeah.
Prosumer hardware definitely matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like, how many? Let me ask this question: how many serious, like, how much new blood, new bodies do you think will be in season 2?
Notwithstanding
Air.
Notwithstanding Conan's commitment for a couple more humans, I know of 2 people in the Discord that were strongly like, hey, when signups? I know of a couple of people that were on the fence with commitments because of the holidays and are kind of stoked about doing it again in January. I would not be surprised if we could field 10 racers per race next week, or next season or more. But I also think we need to, even though the show gets broadcast in the concept of seasons, we need to make racer entry interior to a season possible and meaningful. So, because it can't be like, hey, welcome to the Discord, you get a berth next month, have fun.
Yeah,
like,
wait.
that's no fun.
Yeah, because I asked because, like, I'm happy. Like, the racing was hella fun. I've never raced in a sim. Like, I think the fanciest thing I've raced is go-karts at a family fun center. But I would gladly step aside for somebody with much more, like, actual race experience, because that's more fun to watch than me, you know? Like, and I guess the sentiment is, yeah, get this fancy hardware in like the best hands, you know.
I will say though,
To that though is it's, as someone who has sim raced quite a lot with the old league and now this league, and it's really fun to watch people's progression because everybody has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, maybe it's your first time racing, especially in like such a high-end rig like that, but it's something that over time you learn, and I think I speak for everyone here, like, we're all willing to help you learn too. So it's like, we don't want it to be like only aliens, just like, yeah. So that's not fun. It's fun to race with friends regardless of the skill level.
It takes a bit of a mental shift, and this was true for me for a long time, to go from my ego and my public presentation demands the podium, but what I'm really after is the peanut butter. Like, I want the personal best. Like, I want to crack a minute on Lime Rock. I want to crack 58 seconds on Lime Rock. Like, I want to be able to and go back and point at the, like, and iRacing does this automatically. Like, I want to be like, this was my story. I was a rookie, and then I was the guy that ran the tables on Spa in Class B or whatever. And that progression story is valuable to me. Like, I still want to win when I'm head to head, but, like, the number has to go down. It's a fight to make the number go down every lap.
Yeah.
I will.
And that's why I liked the Tuesday night, because it seemed like we were all like maybe more similar skill level, except for Space Peonies, who crushed us. But
And yet somehow didn't get a challenge point.
yeah,
Listen.
I will say too, like,
So yeah, there's room for everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we went through a little bit of this with our old racing league, like we're in the early phases of the pandemic, and we discovered that there was basically the concept of a try-hard league and a not try-hard league. And the thing that I would love to have is I would love to have something that is like a explicit, like more novice racer training thing. Like we've talked on and off about this. I would love, like, it's so much fun to watch the concepts click for people and to watch them improve and to watch their lap times drop and to be able to celebrate with them, because like that's the big thing that I've taken away from racing is it's like, yes, I still get the red mist, but also the real satisfaction is in bringing the lap time down and knowing that you can do it. And bringing that to people, I think, would be really fun. And we talked about this in the origins of this, the idea of accessibility and the idea that we want this to be a place where like anybody with any skill level or any ability to work with the equipment would be welcome. And, you know, we'd be excited about seeing that progress with them too. And that's a thing that I just feel really strongly about. So
Yeah, 100%. Like if I could, like my top moment of the entire series was the final late race of the GT4 when it was Conan, myself, Gould, and John, and we're all just like, we're a pack of four right at the front. And for a couple of laps there, it was kind of anyone's race, and like the commitment was there, the skill level was there, and you only get that kind of that quality of racing by bringing everybody up, right? We just do try hard league. That's effectively gone. It's going to be way cooler to get up there with everybody where it's, you know, it's 8 cars on the grid and it's kind of anyone's race. Everybody's, you know, within a half second to each other, and anything can happen. Like,
I would have called that out as a highlight.
Big ups for what Conan was talking about. Like I'd love to be, you know, do some training or some co-hosting or find some way to do some cool segment around increasing everybody's abilities together.
I'd call that out as a highlight, but it turns out I loved it so much I made a video about it and then put $100 of promotion on it in YouTube. And so y'all are getting impression famous. I hope you realize.
terrifying.
Let's talk about the hardware because we've referenced it a whole bunch of times. Skippy Ta, hello, how you doing? The hardware. Let's approach this from the following angle, which is that we have acknowledged that to a certain extent, a certain amount of hardware makes this easier. Like you catch slips faster, you anticipate what your rear end's going to do. Like having a good wheel is critical. Having haptics is useful, if not necessarily critical. And so we put, again, a reasonably large number into each of these pots before we kicked off the project. However, we've also discovered that not all those dollars were as valuable as some of the others. And so I'd love to hear people's opinions on what they could take or leave from what we did here. And I will start. The wheels are the superstar, full stop. I will never go back to non CBQ wheels. These things are amazing, and we're not even using them at 60% of their rated capacity, which is great. The haptics are like the big wow factor. Like someone's like, holy shit, this thing moves. Like that's incredible and it's valuable, but per dollar, nowhere near as valuable as the wheel. IMO. The seats were garbage. The shifters started out amazing, but as we have discovered their idiosyncrasies, they become harder and harder to keep maintained, and that's a me problem. We started this from we're not doing VR. It's just there's no way, and I'm still rock solid on that. We're gonna do triple screen for successive seasons. But that's my opinion. I want to hear about yours.
I can quickly run it, which is from my experience both here and racing. I would say wheel. For me personally, and I know that that's not viable here, but for me personally, the next thing is vision. So like the ability to have active my head as an independent system in the assembly. That's really important. The third thing is actually brake feedback, like pedal feedback.
I was afraid you'd say that.
The ability to say that is more important to me than haptics. The fourth thing is haptics, and the only part of haptic that I care about is yaw. I only care about how.
Which is the only haptic that we did not do here.
Right, and that's the only one that I actually care about because it's the one that tells me when the car, like elevation change is neat, but it's predictable because you like look at the track and you can sort of anticipate how the car is going to move. Yaw is the one where, especially in the F3s, I've noticed like you get used to the idea that the car moves, but it doesn't have that feedback angle, and so it will start to drift on you and you won't catch it quickly enough.
So the problem with yaw, very briefly, is the square footage required to do it is astronomical.
Yeah.
We could fit, and this is, let's call this room 400 square feet, give or take. We could do 2 pods yaw equipped in here versus 4 not. And so yaw becomes a much more warehouse oriented thing or in your home office sort of a thing, and not in a set like this.
I will say the only change that I think would be meaningful in terms of lap time is pedal feedback. Like everything else is amazing. I mean, again, for me personally, vision is a big thing. That's why it's up on the list. But I think in terms of just like practical usage, it took me, I think, until the very last race, that really hot lap that I pulled, to actually get to the point where I could anticipate like the ABS intervention, because I was having to look at the dash as I was braking while I was doing everything else to see if I was locking up the wheels. I couldn't get that feedback from any other angle with just like the noise and the rest of it.
I think to kind of piggyback on what Conan was saying and what you were saying, Ara, is just how it's totally understand, like when you're talking about making one change to any given pod and then multiplying it across all of them, like, and applying that in a large scale productionized environment. It's a ton of work. And you're right, like motion-based sim rig that gives you yaw, just not attainable in this format. It just doesn't work.
If I had 5,000 square feet, different story.
Totally, exactly. Like, and that would be amazing. But I also agree with what you were saying. Like, the motion rig is it's the wow factor on these. And I will say, I was really surprised how much of a difference it made in my ability to control the car when you really get used to it. But I think a lot of it is noise and a lot of it is wow factor when it comes down to actually performance driving the car, because you don't have yaw. And that's where like track IR comes into play, is because track IR, better than anything else, it decouples your actual vision from what the car is doing, just like in real life. So you get that yaw feedback in a affordable package compared to like a massive, 5,000 foot warehouse with huge motion rigs in it.
How about the rest of our pod locals? Because I believe for all 3 of you, this was a completely new experience.
Yeah, I've never touched any sort of sim rig before in my life, so I think if I ever like buy my own, I would probably be really disappointed.
True facts.
Same.
I mean, if this project doesn't go well, I'm going to have 4 for sale, so you never know.
I'll just stick around until no. Honestly, as somebody who's never done this, it actually has me excited to think about, like, oh, maybe this is something that I do want to put together in my house. I mean, obviously not at the same scale, but it's been really eye-opening for me. Just like, oh yeah, I'm kind of a speed freak, and this is a good way to check that box without actually moving my body fast.
Excuse me, are you telling me that hurtling down a mountain on 2 wheels may not be a long-term strategy for health?
What?
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's questionable.
That's the only place I get exercise.
I will say, as someone who doesn't have a super high-end rig at home, you don't need a super high-end rig. You just need. I'm in VR, and that helps a lot. But tracker works. The haptics on the pedals are mandatory, and that gets me like 90% of what I'm doing.
So let's have that conversation later, because being in the SimuKeep ecosystem, every time someone says haptic pedal, my brain says $1,600 active pedal, and I melt. And so let's see what else that market looks like. Any other hardware opinions before we scoot through?
Just real quick, I know we've dealt with this from the back end of this a little bit, but just the sound system, being able to sort of talk to the other drivers a little more easily. We sort of solved it with push to talk, but if you're turning the wheel, it's hard to grab the button sometimes.
Yeah, it's hard to push the talk when driving in anger, and it turns out that having a steering wheel mounted e-brake also makes rallycross slightly more challenging than it would otherwise be with a physical handbrake. So
add a last note, which is what Drain mentioned in chat about rebuilding the shifters. I really would love to like sit down and spend some quality time with the shifters and try and understand if they can be made to be reliable, because they are delightful and I think they are a huge part of the experience.
They go
But
clack clack.
so good.
This is a
Yeah, they
dynamic
sound real
microphone. There's
good.
like no additional.
No,
Just hear it.
shifters are
Go up there and go, and you can fucking hear that like right from the channel.
I
And
really,
have,
I really-
I have no doubt you and I could.
we can fix this
Do
issue.
you guys want to take Pod 4 home with you and just go figure it out?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
really what it comes down to. I think we would both really enjoy that. We actually have some time to play around with stuff.
All right.
Might
So,
not
yeah,
get
we'll
Pod
figure
4
it out.
back,
I think it's worth.
Yeah,
I
that
think it's
one's
worth
saying.
it. Let us try and fix it.
We can rebuild you.
Pod 4 fell off the
Gone.
truck.
Yeah. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, don't you remember Pod 4 was the only one with a silver aluminum extrusion and three 1080p monitors? And...
boy.
Who has a box fan to transport this? Oh,
Oh snap!
Moving on.
that's how you know it's a retro. You can hear the disappointment start to come in.
All right. Where's the? There it is. Let's talk about the software, because this is kind of a third rail topic. Sorry, that's not a. It's not controversial. It's meaningful, and what I mean is that iRacing. It's the 500-pound gorilla. It is the best in so many things, and it is so undelightful to use.
Oh, that's just racing. That's just racing software, period, full stop. We've never been able to find something that's like even remotely halfway decent. I feel like this is also true of like the Forza stuff we did. Like there's no good racing UI for managing all of the factors that go
Okay,
into
but so
building
that
a race.
let's talk about the Forza thing real quick, because that was a completely different failure set. That was a, oh shit, the race crashed. Oh shit, we can't see each other on the track. Oh shit, someone's graphic driver just dropped. Like this is more like, does anyone know how these timers actually work?
I would say that it was more like the thing that I'm thinking of is more like, oh, you've ended up in the wrong configuration. You put the wrong tires down. You didn't remember that the things reset when you go, and like all of those same problems that iRacing presents as black flags. Forza's just like, well, your race is subtly fucked now. Like that is, I would say, the big difference.
Okay,
It's like,
that's fair.
It's like iRacing is uncompromising in how it approaches things, and we again ran into this in our old league, and our solution was administrative overrides because race direction is wrong. And I'd forgotten how much we relied on Ted sitting there with the stream deck and hitting the clear all penalties button
Oh
when
god.
we would call it out, because there was no other way to do it, because they had such obnoxious track limits that like you would do the thing to avoid punting your friend off the track and you would immediately get a penalty that would take you out of the race. And so like there are certain factors where I get it, but if you want the sort of close racing that at least I feel like the Wednesday group really goes after, you have to have some way to manage that. iRacing is better because like the penalties are sort of irrelevant, minus
Or
the
you
black
can
flag
make
and
them irrelevant.
yeah, but like I think for other things that I would like to experiment with, if possible, like ACC, I think that the cool thing about ACC will be, I think the feedback that we will get out of the rigs from ACC will be through the roof compared to iRacing.
Really? What do you base that on?
The fact that like, and I've held this, I've talked about this. This is like the sort of thing that gets you, gets people nerds angry on the internet. But I've talked to a lot of the iRacing folks, and I've looked at the way that we did a lot of time in ACC, and like ACC has things like you can burp your tires coming off of curbs. Like you can do all kinds of weird stuff with like hooking a curb with the outer set of your tire and using that to drive you through, but you run a risk of getting a sidewall cut. Like you run a risk of getting actual flats. There's so much stuff in iRacing that I did that I would never try in ACC because ACC reflects reality. You don't just shove a tire off the inside. and just say,
I've got
"This is
bad
why
news
now."
for you, because all that stuff's coming to iRacing in season 25.
I mean, they say that, but like the other thing about ACC is that I have never had a driving experience where I have felt the chassis of the car fundamentally change dynamics in the middle, like through the course of a 2-hour race. Like the cars break in such a weird way that like I really am deeply curious to try it, because I'm curious if we will get that same level of feedback like sooner and faster with the higher end haptic rigs. And this is one of the reasons why I was like really excited about the idea of an endurance race, because ACC has this like really, it only does one thing. I think iRacing is amazing because it does so many things, like the ability to do ovals and the rest of it, but ACC does GT3 and GT4. It only does those things, it only does those tracks, and that creates like a depth for, I think, closer to try-hard racing that is absolutely phenomenal. and that's what we loved about it.
It's interesting that you led this with things that internet nerds are going to get angry about, because the zeitgeist of the sim racing community, I believe, is the opposite of that opinion.
It absolutely is. And like, this is one of those things where I'm just like, I think that part of it is that most people don't want to spend all of their time racing just GT3 and GT4. Like, and I get it, because I remember when we chose ACC, and I was like, man, we're not going to get to do like the fun Clio Cup races. We're not going to get to do all of this other cool stuff. We're just sitting in GT3. Like, and at the time, I think GT4 was super limited, so it was basically like GT3 cars only. And I was like, are you kidding me? We get no variety. And by like the end of a full season, I was like, and I really, Space Genius points out something really valid, which is like, there is a level of settings configuration and suspension setup and optimization. Like, let me put it this way. The difference between iRacing and ACC is ACC has a Motec accurate data logging system that outputs Motec data files for you. So if you want to plug it into the actual race data logging stuff and analyze your laps in that ecosystem of data logging, you can do it out of ACC.
You see, you say that. None of those words or the way they're stitched together in a sentence are appealing to me in any way, shape, or form.
Which is totally reasonable. And like, this is why I say it falls on the try-hard side, right? Like,
but it's like there are different constituencies trying to get different things out of the simulator.
Yeah.
For me, it's what provides the highest fidelity racing experience modulo the lowest administrative workload for an operator to let people have fun. Like, the purpose of this project is for people to have fun and maybe make some money on the side, right?
Yeah.
If it's hard to get people to have fun, it's just a full stop. Like, that's why we're not. It's like why we didn't get any of the flight sim stuff like set up for this time around, because the amount of administrative load to swap back and forth between driving sim and flight sim, unmanageable. It already takes 5 hours to set up an episode.
Yeah.
With that said, you and I could probably spiritedly argue about this the entire rest of the segment. Does anyone else have opinions about the software we're using?
Please, other people have
So yeah, I was going to weigh in briefly here, and I'm going to take sort of a different tack on this entirely, which is I think the two things I would like to see from whatever software ends up getting used is, first of all, better kind of orchestration or race management. So some of this goes back to the whole like race control. I'd like to see a little bit more ability for maybe whoever's at the front desk to actually, clear those penalties or tweak things about the race kind of as it's progressing. And then the second thing, and I know that we've also talked about this very briefly, but maybe better spectator support. If we're all on the track trying to figure out like who's doing the interesting driving right now, or like could we just have a camera that's on the corkscrew, just
Corkscrew cam.
like corkscrew cam, or just something. So, or I don't know, maybe and this maybe also is getting into a little bit of the show presentation, but having more social aspects from the green room. But that's not really relevant for the racing part. But I mean, just better spectator support from the racing side, I think might be interesting if it's something we want to broadcast.
So we got halfway there on the Saturday show in that, because we only had 3 pod drivers, we set up the 4th pod in spectator mode, and that in and of itself was interesting and useful content. The problem with having, and this goes back to the genetics of iRacing, how they've constructed the program. To spectate a race in iRacing, in addition to being allowed in the race as a driver, you must also own all of the content used in the race. And so if it's a race with a car you don't own, that's $14, $15. And if it's a race on a track you don't own, that's $15. And so now, in addition to the $15 a month you're outlaying to race, you've just ponied up another $30 for the privilege of spectating some match, which in an individual context might make some amount of sense. Like, doing that here means, like, doing that at the head end means one more commercial license. One more commercial license is another $1,000, right? And so the economics of doing it in iRacing just do not make sense at this time. The economics of doing it in ACC, like, maybe, but here's where things get weird with ACC. Their commercial licensing is very different than their retail licensing. It's like, I know that a lot of people will just go play on Steam and do the thing that they're doing, and that's fine, whatever, and I'm sure they support that. A setup like this is very different. This is a commercial setup, and the developers might have a very, very different opinion about the usage in that and what spectating looks like. But like, it's on the list of tasks to do before season 2 is have a meaningful conversation with the Evo devs and say, what can we do for you and what can you do for us? Because I think we have to answer that question. All of which is to say, I love what iRacing brings to the table, but I am absolutely not married to it if there's a better balance of outcomes.
I think it's a multiple set of things. Like I think there are different software stacks for different groups of people who are willing to tolerate different levels of pre-committed setup. Like, and that's I think just probably not even a season 2 conversation. It's maybe a one-off conversation.
No, that's a one-off conversation.
And it's
Like we will forever, for my own sanity, run one piece of racing software during a season, and one piece of flight sim like, dude, just getting fucking like Circuit Superstars like stitched into this was a lot of fucking work. Like, there's only so many hours. Any other opinions on software? For what it's worth, iRacing said that they will have better orchestration software maybe next year. So I know I said that about Q4, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And that brings us to season 2. Last topic before we move on and get out of here. We've talked a lot about like this big mythical season 2, like what's it gonna look like, what's it going to be, and this is what I think it's going to be. I think there is going to be at maximum 2 nights a week, at minimum 1 night a week. I think it's going to be the same 4-week format. Like we're gonna go do like week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, because that is a digestible mental commitment around developing the show, but it's also a digestible human commitment to attending the show. It's like what you may or may not know on this end is we ask 90% commitment from everybody. Like if you cannot commit to every race day with 90% commitment, and we define 90% as if your child is sick, go take care of your child. If you forgot, like you're having a nice night out dinner with your friends, fuck them, you're here. Like that's what 90% means in this context. And like doing that for longer than a month, not easy when you're in full adult mode. And so I think a month is still the right timestamp. We should have a serious discussion about whether flight simulation, combat flight sims are viable for season 2. I don't feel like we've wrung all the juice out of the racing thing at this point.
I feel like my personal opinion is let's get the race thing locked in to the point where you could delegate every individual component of it with a clear run book, and then we can talk about building a second thing. Because like even just watching you set up Circuit Superstars, I was like, if anybody else was asked to recreate this, like I'm sure Show would figure it out. I'm sure Trap could figure it out. Like I'm sure that the folks who have done this regularly could figure it out. But I'm just like let's get this ironed to perfect, and then or near perfect, and it runs itself, and then let's go.
There are mutually exclusive brain maps in this setup. There's stuff in here that Shote set up that I trust will work, but I could not recreate. And there's shit in here that I set up, mostly like the front end here, that like smart people would be able to figure out no problem, but like good luck getting the show off on time if something happens to me. And that's it needs to be more reproducible.
Yeah, and I think like to your point about let's not get into ACC as a thing. Let's not like I think it makes a lot of sense to let's just try and make this easy. And like I would love a world where you could race. Like I would love that to be a thing if that's a thing that you want to do, or there's that flexibility and freedom available.
We actually talked about because this is all software defined networking, so in theory we could bridge the lab up to my office upstairs. I do have the mythical 5th pod. I do have my own racing pod in my personal office. And we could do that, but then it's like, okay, well then am I going between the 2 buildings to host the show? Are we hosting the show from my house? It's complicated. Point being,
that's worse than just from the seat to the pod on Saturdays.
Jesus Christ. It looks like 6 feet. It's about 1.5 miles.
It's an emotional journey is what it is.
Rella says something that might be interesting would be a month-long racing school that could be done as a season or in between seasons or even parallel to season. Rella, you're not the only person that's had that idea. I believe Conan at one point offered to run said racing school. I don't know how we stitch it into what we have in mind, but I think it is absolutely a first-class idea, and we have to figure out how to do it.
I have a number of ideas about this, and like I think that the way that we would try and do it is we would try and have 2 instructors, i.e. like me and Goals, who is gone now, so I can volunteer him for things.
Oh, is he left?
Yeah, he had to.
Excellent. He gets all the action
All the
items.
action, yeah.
This is how corporate America works.
And then 2 folks who are more novice drivers who want to learn, where we could like be like, okay, here's how you make time on a track. I mean, I do this with my friends on the big tracks regularly. And it's super rewarding. And it's super fun. I'd love to be able to like open up a little bit of that excitement to like, you know, anybody who is interested. And yeah, I think a commitment to say like, I will build out the syllabus, I'll build out the lesson plan, we'll present it ahead of time, people can follow along. They can sort of have a sense of what it means to learn to go fast, because you can do it safely. Like you can do this virtually, which is very safe, but you can also do it in real life really safely. And I think that that's a thing that folks don't, you know, they see the big crashes, the excitement and the adrenaline and all that, but it's like, I don't know, I've been, knock on wood, I've been riding race bikes for 14 years since I've had a crash. And I'm reasonably quick, pretty good on a road race.
How many
Sorry.
bikes do you own right now?
It's
unknowable.
8-ish.
8-ish. All right.
Depends on how you count.
You need to define a bike.
That's right. First, you must define
And
the universe.
define own.
Yeah.
So
In your-
let me duck ahead here and double check that's the last slide. It is. Okay, that's the see you next season slide. So this is the last call for feedback of any variety that you want to get down on quote unquote paper here before we get everybody out the door at 8 o'clock like we promised.
I'll second sticking with iRacing until we get it dialed.
Yeah.
Well, you're all going to have 2 months of it for free, so there you got that going for you.
Yeah, I'll just put another vote in for some sort of driving school, because I would love some sort of way to like
Called.
step up my
Really
game.
excited about that.
And then also any dirt anything racing, I just freaking love.
We didn't
So-
talk about this, but let's talk about this. The reason that we did not do dirt racing more often than we did is because dirt racing is absolutely murderous on the pods. Because you spend the vast majority of the time at some sort of absurd slip angle on dirt and gravel. And when you're at absurd slip angle, that means like all your little four legs on the pod are going like this. And like if there's anything loose on the pod, it's going to go flying off before the end of the race. Anything that's tight is going to get loose. Like it's the reason we went to Nordlock fixings for everything. It's just so hard on the hardware. And like in the context and duration of a show where it's like, this needs to last a couple more weeks and then it's fine, great. In the context where each one of those needs to continue servicing humans for another 2 years, maybe 3, before the depreciation takes them over, like, dirt racing's fucking hell. And so, like, Duffy, the question that I'd ask you is, would the dirt racing experience be the same without the haptics turned on?
I would totally be up for trying it just to see.
All right.
Or turn them down to 20%. Like there has to be a way to chop all of the highs and lows out of the system. And even if it's just, I'm sideways and the whole pod is tilted and it's not vibrating like crazy, I think that gives, frankly, it probably gives you more reasonable feedback because there's less noise.
Yeah, that would be interesting to look at if we can kind of
Yeah.
change what that feels like.
Totally.
Yeah, I feel like just the wheel feedback is plenty.
Yeah.
Space Punies asks about the availability or viability of daytime streams, and the two answers to that are: 1, yes, anything that gets more people in here, let's do it. 2, turns out America's not all that into iRacing, but Europe is super into iRacing, and if you want people to watch your shit, broadcast in Euro prime time and or American morning. So totally viable.
Just to kind of reiterate some stuff that did come up earlier, I mean, I like the variety of the cold open, but I think the consistency of maybe trying to do a longer race session would be interesting instead of maybe 2 feature races. What if it was just like 1 enduro race? I don't know.
We actually have a different concept in mind for the cold open next season, but I'm not going to talk about it here because we have not received permission from all the places we would have to film to do it. But yeah. Cool. All right, let's call it.
Sounds good.
Thank you again, everyone. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you all for watching. Thank you also for your feedback. Last pitch for the Discord. If you would like to follow with Season Dev, we're about to do a big revision of the roles within Discord, so it's much clearer about I'm a person that's here to drive. I'm a person that's here to watch. I'm a person that signed all the agreements that gets to show up in person, and kind of flatten that structure so it's very obvious. Point being, thank you everyone. Season 2 targeted for early to mid-January. Discords, we're going to be where the news on that comes through, and we'll see you all real soon. Sooner than you think, because it's the holidays.
The eternal time warp.
Thanks, folks. That's it.
Play off some Mariah Carey. Let's go.
No, he's invoked the thing. No, Space Punies, thank you for attending.